Greetings, everyone. This is for my U.S. History 2 students. We're looking at the lecture series titled A Return to Normalcy today. And this time period essentially is the time period before the Great Depression and the beginning of the Great Depression, 1921 to 1933. So you'll be discussing the Republican domestic program from 21 to 33, 1921 to 1933. And you'll be comparing this time period between 1870s to 1901, which was what we just studied, the Gilded Age. So I'll be going over some of the comparisons in Concept 1, but a little bit of this you need to go back to your notes and dig up some stuff where you can actually make some direct comparisons between the Gilded Age and this so-called return to normalcy age. Shortly before the United States entered the First World War, Woodrow Wilson, the president who got the United States in the war, remarked to the Secretary of Navy, Josephius Daniels, quote, "Every reform we have won will be lost when we go into this war. We have been making a fight on special privileges. War means autocracy, though. The people we have unhorsed will inevitably come into control of the country, for we shall be dependent upon steel, ore, and financial magnates. They will run the nation." Wilson's prediction was essentially correct, although not every reform was lost. What helped make this possible, losing the reforms, or losing ground on the reforms, was that Wilson's own party, the Democratic Party, so firmly united during most of his administration, fell into snarling factions, mainly because of the war, and became so helpless that for 2 consecutive elections it was unable to play a role of any responsible opposition. So consequently, from 1921 to 1933, the Republicans were running the show. So also with the Republican takeover in the 1920s, ultra-conservative businessmen consequently had a strong influence in policy. And the attitudes of political leaders were as follows. President Warren G. Harding called for a return to normalcy. So he invented this word, normalcy. So he wants to go back to the Gilded Age, back to the post-Civil War age, right before the Progressive Era. He wants to, in other words, return to the days of laissez-faire economics. President Coolidge, more normal than Harding, announced that the business of the United States is business. President Hoover insisted for the American system was a product of rugged individualism, this kind of confusion of ethics, applying the landed frontier to the industrial frontier, where it's very difficult for not only really weak people to compete, but your average run-of-the-mill person as well. So you have to have an extraordinary abilities, connections, and wealth to even call yourself a contender under this situation. Thus, the decade after the First World War, like the decades after the Civil War, featured conservatism in politics and in social philosophy. In both areas, the Republican Party enjoyed almost undisputed control of national affairs. The Republicans avowed the philosophy of laissez-faire, but in practice made government an instrument of large corporations, as did the Republicans in the Civil War period. Wilson's successors, President Harding and Coolidge, did not dissolve the regulatory agencies that were created during the progressive movement, but by naming commissioners who were less sympathetic to regulation, they rendered these agencies completely ineffective. Harding named conservative advocates of big business to the Interstate Commerce Commission, the Federal Reserve Board, and the Federal Trade Commission. So it's the wolf guarding the henhouse in many ways on these newly established boards. Both decades saw rapid industrial expansion and changes in manufacturing and business techniques. Also, There was an uneven distribution in wealth, which led to an acute and prolonged depression. All right, so that's concept 1. Next time we'll come back, we'll be looking at concept 2, discussing the 2 phases of Republican domestic programs from 1921 to 1933. I'll talk to you guys later. Email me if you have any questions.